And members of parliament have declared spending limits for the 2022 general elections as null and void, citing late submission by the RBC. The Committee on Delegated Legislation said the limits ought to have been approved by the parliament before they are gazetted. IEBC published the spending limits on Monday. An action MPs said contravened the Election Campaign Financing Act 2013. Bushebi Jr. brings us the details on this.
Members of Parliament have annulled election campaign financing limits gazetted by the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission (IEBC).
In spite of the fact that these were delivered to Parliament on the 5th of August and tabled on the same day, as we speak today, they are out of time. Even if we take whatever decision, even if we approve them, they cannot be gazetted within a period of 12 months.
Members of the Delegated Legislation Committee in the National Assembly unanimously rejected the regulations accusing IEBC of malice. Led by Vice Chair Charles Njagagwa, the MPs claimed the electoral body wanted to paint Parliament in bad light for failing to pass the regulations, yet they were gazetted out of time.
These draft regulations are also out of time and therefore cannot actually be with the purview of Parliament to consider. We therefore make a report to Parliament that even these regulations are now time barred.
However, IEBC insisted that they had followed all the procedures as required by the law, as they had earlier engaged the Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs, a process that had stalled. More so, the MPs insisted that they would not be party to making an illegality find its way into law.
We cannot act like we are going to amend the law today. We deal with it as it is. Clearly, the limits that were set were supposed to have been treated as regulations as given under Section 29, and they are definitely null and void. I actually propose that we nullify them.
We can't allow an illegality and constitutional provisions to find their way into our legal system. Unfortunately, we need to annul, let IEBC go put their house in order and come. We will not entertain indolent organizations, but they have to go and work.
Laikipia West Member of Parliament Patrick Mariru was of the view that Parliament is not against limitation of financing, but insisted that things have to be done in the right way.
Unfortunately, the way it was done is what we call in law analysis ab initio. They must regularize because that is their work. So I move for annulling.
Out there, people think Parliament doesn't scrutinize laws. On this one, Parliament is very clear. Unfortunately, and Chair, it is good for you to put it on record that it is not necessary that Parliament is against campaign limitation of campaign financing. No, it's just that things have to be done within the law.
IBC wanted to paint Parliament as the bad one. So they're acting out of time, and without even blinking their eyes, they want to push things to Parliament. And that is a mischief we were reading in the one publication gazettement, and actually gazetting without coming to Parliament for approval.
Not the intention of the Commission to cast any aspersions on the work of Parliament, as we have read in the newspapers and watched on TV. It's our intention, and we appreciate the role of Parliament in this country, and the Commission, we appreciate the guidance and supervision of Parliament, especially the committees that oversight us.
The annulment is a blow to efforts of the Commission to try to level the playing field for those vying for positions in the next general elections. The Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission (IEBC) on Monday issued a gazette notice prescribing the amount of money political candidates and political parties will be allowed to spend in their 2022 campaigns. According to the gazette notice dated August 9, 2021, a presidential candidate will be allowed to spend a maximum of 4.4 billion shillings for their 2022 campaigns. Those eyeing the gubernatorial, senatorial, or women representative seats also have their spending regulated, with Turkana County having the highest spending limit at 123 million shillings, followed by Nairobi at 117 million shillings and Marsabit at 114 million shillings. Lamu County has the least spending limit at 21 million shillings, followed by Tharaka Nithi at 23 million shillings, Elgeyo Marakwet at 25 million shillings. Those seeking positions in the National Assembly and County Assemblies also have their spending limits prescribed in the Gazette notice. Reporting for Prime News, Ambushebi Jr.
Parliamentarians have condemned the use of excessive force by police officers on Kenyans, especially during demonstrations, responding to a statement by the chair of the administration and the National Security Committee, Peter Mwadhi, on the killing of 2 boys who had been arrested by police officers in Embu. The legislators termed the incident as shameful and called for prosecution of the police officers involved. The nominated Member of Parliament, David Sankok, however, called for responsibility on the part of demonstrators, saying they must equally handle themselves with decorum and avoid infringing on other people's rights.
It is shameful for the police to use brutality and even kill people who are demonstrating following the death of the 2 young men who were killed by the police. Honorable Speaker, extrajudicial killings in this country must come to an end, and any police officer who was responsible must be taken to court, tried, and be chained according to the laws of the land. So I think the police should not consider themselves as being above the law.
And it's high time that the Inspector General of Police realize that this country is governed by law. Again, in demonstration, the demonstrators should also know that their rights stop where other people's rights start. You cannot purport to be demonstrating, destroying properties, and blocking roads, blocking ambulances that are taking people to hospital, and you also want to be treated with dignity while you are infringing into other people's rights.
And Kenya and Somalia have agreed to reset their relations as the 2 countries seek to chart a new path. President Uhuru Kenyatta held bilateral talks with Somalia Prime Minister Mohamed Hussein Roble at State House in Mombasa, barely days after the Foreign Affairs Cabinet Secretary Rachel Omamo flew to Mogadishu to meet Mr. Roble. George Allington with more.
Kenya and Somalia agreed to reset their bilateral relations, the Kenyan presidency announced on Tuesday, after a meeting between President Kenyatta and visiting Somali Prime Minister Mohamed Hussein Roble. Kenya's head of state said that the prosperity of its people is key, and it was imperative for the 2 countries to open a new page for its people by encouraging people-to-people and interactions.
We are neighbors. God chooses your neighbors. We are free to choose our friends, but it is God who chooses for you your neighbor.
Kenyatta told Roble after chairing bilateral talks at Kenya's State House in the southeastern coastal city of Mombasa, to mend severed ties between the 2 countries. The Kenyan leader added that an amicable resolution should be reached soon for the maritime border dispute that had driven a wedge between the 2 nations. He emphasized that without peace, there cannot be prosperity. He advocated for refocusing of the 2 states to providing services to its people. He also said that this can only be possible if they work together to root out terrorism.
And ours is to ensure that we live in a respectful, cordial, mutually beneficial manner with our neighbors. And I believe that that is the spirit and the aim of this visit. So I feel very happy to welcome you, and I look forward to our deliberations.
Somalia announced in December 2020 that it was cutting diplomatic ties with its southwestern neighbor, accusing Kenya of violating Somali sovereignty and territorial integrity. Relations between the countries have been marred by increasing tensions stemming from security and maritime border disputes. For his part, Roble regretted the recent deterioration in relations, saying it was an error for the 2 nations to forsake the vision of unity held by their respective founding fathers. Somalia's president said, and I quote, "Today is the beginning of a strong and deep relationship of our brotherhood. Somalia will work hard to strengthen the Joint Commission for Cooperation in the interest of both peoples, their unity and stability and beyond the region and the continent, Roble said through a translator. We will look for opportunities that lead to lasting stability and peaceful coexistence based on mutual respect and genuine cooperation, while avoiding anything that could harm that relationship, he added. Roble said that robust diplomatic ties are key to promoting trade, security, and people-to-people interactions. Reporting for Prime News on Maisha Television Kenya, from London, I am George Billington.
Poor infrastructure in schools continues to pose a challenge to learners and teachers in West Pokot County, with many of them still being forced to learn in structures built in colonial times. The West Pokot Governor John Nyungapo has urged the Ministry of Education to build modern learning facilities in the county in order to enhance education in the area.
Registered as a 10-student school, but currently we are operating on 7 because of lack of classrooms. For every form, we need 3 more classrooms. So in total, we need around 12 classrooms for us to be in a position to make all our students comfortable and reduce our enrollment in those classes.
And I've mentioned to him before, I will try very much from next week going forward to see that the drawings for the story building we gave him, that was going to be built beside this school, we'll be asking the President to assist us.
Well, and days after the government uplifted the 60% matatu carrying capacity, passengers are still forced to pay the previous fare, with matatu operators claiming that the 10 p.m. curfew is still a hindrance to their normal operation. Our reporter Philip Simiu prepared a feature on the state of transport sector.
The rise in fuel price has made it difficult for matatu operators to lower the transportation cost.
Nairobi, kutoka hapa Bungoma hadi Nairobi, bei ilikuwa shilingi 1,500. Lakini sasa bei imekuja shilingi 1,200 kwa sasa. Sasa tunaona hapa pesa tumepunguza, lakini bado bei ya mafuta ile ya gari haijapunguzwa. Gari iende na maji, gari isafiri na hewa, gari na safiri na mafuta. Tungezidi kuomba rais wetu wa Jamhuri ya Kenya Muigai Uhuru Kenyatta apunguze hata bei ya mafuta. Maana alipandisha wakati ya corona, lakini bado sisi tumepunguza bei, lakini hajapunguza bei ya mafuta. Sisi kwa abiria tumepunguza.
Customer wanalia ya kwamba tumewachiliwa tupepe capacity, lakini bei bado iko pale pale. Kitu ambacho tumeomba mheshimiwa wetu apunguze pia mafuta, sababu sisi tumepunguza nauli.
Enos Wekesa, a matatu driver in Bungoma town, narrates how the COVID-19 pandemic has affected the sector.
Kwa majina naitwa Enos Wekesa. Kama dereva wa matatu, tutangaziwa na rais wetu wa Jamhuri ya Kenya Uhuru Kenyatta, akasema watu waanze kubeba magari, yaanze kubeba abiria katika ile ya kawaida ya pale nyuma kabla ya corona. Na katika hiyo hali ndio alifanya jambo nzuri, lakini tena pande nyingine imetuaffect, kwa sababu unapata ndio tunabeba abiria capacity, unapata abiria sasa hawapo, kwa sababu ile hali ambayo kwamba tuko ndani hali ya janga la corona.
According to Geoffrey Ekesa, the 10 p.m. curfew has affected their operation, limiting their time of working.
Unajua sasa hata ndugu yangu sisi ndio tunabeba watu wengi, lakini sasa hata mambo kama hata kudungwa hiyo shindani tujapewa kipaumbele, unaona. Na sisi ndio tunashiriki na watu wengi, tunabeba watu wengi.
Rais wa Kenya, hii mambo ya curfew, atufungulie magari isafiri mpaka usiku mpaka asubuhi 24/7. Hata kama permit itakatiwa, license ikatiwe, gari tufanye kazi ya matatu 24/7. Maana kama umetuambia hata tunabeba capacity ndio, lakini hayo masaa hayaruhusu kujaza gari, kwa sababu unapata watu wanaogopa hiyo curfew hata kusafiri hiyo masaa.
They are advising their fellow matatu operators to follow the COVID-19 protocols to curb the spread of the disease.
Mandereva wetu na makondakta na wale wote wahudumu wa matatu kufanya kazi na kutii sheria za rais wetu na deputy wake, kwa maana tunajua sheria sasa imerudi sawa sawa. Kama ni nauli mpaka imerudishwa chini, hata iwapo ijarudi sawa sawa, lakini imerudishwa chini kidogo.
Customer anapoingia kwa gari tunamserve akuwe na maski, na kisha customer ako na maski yaingie kwa gari, na kisha customer amenawa ama tumemsanitize yaingie kwa gari.
Reporting for Maisha TV, I'm Philip Simiyu.
Well, moving on, the Kirinyaga County Governor Anwe Guru is supporting farmers to rear pigs to tap on growing demand for the pork both locally and export market. The governor said that the pig rearing project supports farmers to diversify on their agricultural production with an aim of improving their living standards at a time the country's economy has been bogged down by the COVID-19 pandemic.
Tulikuwa tumekuja inspection tour, na hiyo inspection tour ambayo tulikuwa nayo, tulikuwa tunaangalia soko ambayo inajengwa pale Makutano kwa sababu ya wakaazi wetu ambao wametolewa kwa barabara ambao wanauza nyanya. Alafu kuna mradi mwingine wa nguruwe pia tulikuwa tumekuja kuangalia vile unaendelea kwa sababu tumepatiana vikundi 20 katika Kirinyaga tuanzishe mipango ya kusaidia wananchi wetu kutoka huku chini. Na sisi kama kaunti ya Kirinyaga tumekuwa tukifanya hii kazi ya kusaidia wananchi wetu. Na sasa tunajenga soko zingine 4 ambazo zinaisha mwezi huyu unakuja. Moja ni hii ya Makutano ya nyanya. Alafu kuna factory 2 ambazo tunatengeneza. Moja ya nyanya ya pande wa Kangai na ingine ya avocado. Ndio watu wetu wakikuza hizi vitu wakuwe na mahali ya kupeleka.
Nyanza Region Education officers are racing against time to ensure 100% Form 1 transition, given that the ministry's extension on reporting to schools is a few days from coming to an end. The Nyanza Regional Commissioner Mago Mutindika has cautioned various stakeholders in education and security sectors to ensure that they ensure the remaining students who have not reported to high school to do so by Friday.
The quality assurance, when a CDE is supposed to provide the nominal in primary schools, those kids who did the exam, so that when these chiefs are moving around with the Nyumba Kumi elders, they are able to know in this particular village, in this particular family, there are 2 kids who have not gone to Form 1.
I've instructed all my sub-county directors.
So, yes, you do that. Give them all the chiefs. I think you have how many chiefs? 10. We have 10 locations. So, make sure that the chief has a copy of the number. I wish you well, but I expect on Friday we are at 100% transition. Regionally, we are at 72%. Nationally, we are number 3. Number 1 is Northeastern with 79%. Number 2 is Central Region with 76%. And number 3 is Nyanza Region with 72%. So, Northeastern, you know the handships, you are there.
Yes, sir.
That is a very handship area. So we should not allow ourselves to be defeated by a region like that.
Why our learners are not in school should throw a circular. And the end of our head teacher who does contravene that circular must be brought to our attention for necessary action. So you are the men and women who should work with our office very closely through our deputy county commissioners, through our sub-county directors of education and all our officers, including CSOs, so that we ensure those learners who should be in school are in school.
The section of youth in Mombasa County want the government to prioritize their needs and address the growing unemployment levels by providing social safety nets. According to data by Kenya Bureau of Statistics, the number of unemployed people increased by more than 1.8 million people by September 2020, a situation which has worsened due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The youth say despite Kenya having numerous policies in place, they are rarely implemented.
Fight for social safety nets
in terms of paid internship to graduates of shillings of 20,000 Kenya shillings per month, and that those safety nets also include cash for work schemes for other unemployed out-of-school youth. 2, the university students be given a chance to elect their leaders through universal suffrage, as opposed to the delegate system that was in the Honorable Duale Education Amendment Bill.
We need to realize that whatever problem that regards the depoliticization of the youth population has been very systemic and historical, and that only means that the solution cannot be instant coffee. We are not going to have an instant solution to the depoliticization of the youth in this country. Repoliticizing the youth population will not be instant, but through activities like this, through very deliberate conversations and structural engagement, it's very possible, it's very practical to have a more political youth population.
And now to matters COVID-19, civil servants who have not been vaccinated against the COVID-19 have until August 23rd to do so, or disciplinary action will be taken against them. According to Head of Public Service Joseph Kinyua, there is low uptake of the vaccines among public servants, especially in security sector teachers, despite vaccine availability for the same. This, Kinyua says, has negatively affected service delivery to the public. Let's have a look.
As the Ministry of Health wraps up the vaccination drive in the country, civil servants have been ordered to take the jab or face disciplinary action. Head of Public Service Joseph Kinyua in a circular said that despite the civil servants being prioritized in the ongoing vaccination exercise in the nation, the vaccination uptake among civil servants is relatively low. The circular reads in part, and I quote, "Some public servants have deliberately avoided getting vaccinated so that they can stay away from work under the guise of working from home, hence affected service delivery to the public." End of quote. The defiant civil servants now have until August 23rd to get the first jab or be disciplined. Joseph Kinyua said that the revelations of the low vaccine intake were made during a National Security Advisory Committee meeting instructing principal secretaries and accounting officials to ensure full implementation of the decision. This comes at the backdrop of more vaccines arriving in the country and more centers opened for the exercise. Kinyua's directive, however, is a deviation from an earlier directive that taking vaccine is voluntary. Today, the uptake of the second dose of the vaccine by the priority groups, including those aged 58 years and above, stands at 214,722, others 205,802, teachers stands at 102,007, security officers at 56,219, and health workers is at 120,155. The proportion of adults fully vaccinated is 2.6%. Reporting for Maisha TV, Maisha Jr.
Well, and that's all we had for Maisha Prime News. My name is Rida Tibet Karing. Enjoy the rest of your viewing.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Your world of Maisha is getting an exciting makeover. We're giving your channel a dedicated touch to enhance your viewing experience. Finding what you want, loving it has never been this easy.
Your capacity. The problem is leadership.
My name is Rida Tibet Karing.
Welcome home to your dedicated channel, where you choose it, watch it, and love it. It's your season.